Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this Ahasuerus which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 107 and 20 provinces, that in those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto the great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords of fine linen and purple, to silver rings, and pillars of marble, and beds were of gold and silver upon pavement of red and blue and white and black and marble. And they gave them drinks in vessels of gold, and the vessels being diverse from another, and royal in abundance, according to the state of the king. And drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for the king had appointed to all officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry, he commanded Mehulam, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abakada, Zetar, and Carceres, the 7 chamberlains that served the prince of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with a royal crown, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. あと、シュエロス、すなわちインドからエチオピアまで127州を治めたアシエロスの世、アシエロス王が首都スサで王の位に座していた頃、その地帯第3年に彼はその大臣及び知人たちのために主演を設けた。ペルシャとメディアの将軍及び貴族並び諸州の大臣たちがその前にいた。その時王はその盛んな国の富とその王位の輝きと華やかさを示して多くの日を重ね、180日に及んだ。これらの日が終わった時、王は王の宮殿の園の庭で、首都スサにいる大小のすべての民のために7日の間、主演を設けた。そこには白綿布の垂れ幕と青色の帳があって、紫色の細布の紐で銀の輪及び大理石の柱につながれていた。また長い椅子は金銀で作られ、石膏と大理石と真珠塊及び宝石の切りばめ細工の床の上に置かれていた。酒は金の杯で賜り、その杯はそれぞれ違ったもので、王の大きな度量にふさわしく、王の用いる酒を惜しみなく賜った。その飲むことは法にかない、誰も強いられることはなかった。これは王が人々におのおの自分の好むようにさせよと、宮廷のすべての役人に命じておいたからである。王妃ウシアもまた、アシリオスの王に属する王宮のうちで女たちのために主演を設けた。7日目にアシリオス王は酒のために心が楽しくなるように仕える7人の侍従、メポタン、ビズダ、ハルボデ、ビグダ、アバグダ、セタル及びカルカスに命じて、王妃ワシテに王妃の冠をかぶせられて王の前に来させようと言った。それは彼女が美しかったので、その美しさを民だと大臣たちに見させようためであった。But Queen Vashti refused to come to king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore the king was very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men which knew the times, for the king's manner towards all that knew the law and judgment, and the next unto him was Kashara, Setar, Adma, Tarish, Maris, Marsa, and Mechan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, which sat first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law, because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains? Now Mechan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen hath not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes that and to all the people that are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For this deed the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, King Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus there shall arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him. Let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medians, that it shall not be altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another, that it is better than she. When the king decree which he shall make shall be punished together throughout all this empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husband honor, both great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Mechem. For he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, that it should be published according to the language of every people. ところが王妃ワシテは侍従が伝えた王の命令に従って食うことを拒んだので、王は大いに憤り、その怒りが彼のうちに燃えた。そこへ王は時を知っている知者に言った。王はすべての立法のと審判に通じている者に相談するのを常とした。時に王の継いだ人々はペルシャおよびメディアの7人の大臣、カルシナ、セタル、アラマタ、タルシシ、メレス、マルセナ、メンカムであった。彼は皆王の顔を見る者で、国の周囲に座する人々であった。王妃ウシアワシテは、アシリオス王が侍従をもって伝えた命令を行わないゆえ、立法に従って彼女にどうしたらよかろうか。メンカムは王と大臣たちの前で、王妃ワシテはただ王に向かって悪いことをしたばかりでなく、すべての大臣およびアシリオス王の各州のすべての民に向かってしたものです。王妃の行いはあまねくすべての女たちに聞こえて、彼らは常にその目に夫を癒しめ、アシリオス王は王妃ワシテに彼の前に来るように命じてこなかったと言うでしょう。王妃の行いを聞いたペリシテとミリアの大臣の夫人たちもまた、今日の王のすべての大臣たちにこのように言うでしょう。そうせば必ず癒しめと怒りが多く起こります。もし王が良しとされるならば、わしてはこの後、再びアシリオス王の前に来てはならないという王の命令を下し、これをペリシタとメディアの立法の中に書き入れて変わることのないようにし、そして王妃の位を彼女に勝る者に与えなさい。王の下される御事のりが大きな国にあまねく告げ示されるとき、妻たる者はことごとくその王と公家の別なく共に敬うようになるでしょう。王と大臣たちはこの言葉を良しとしたので、王はメンカムの言葉の通りに行った。王は王の書集にあまねく書を送り、各州にはその文字に従い、各民族にはその言語に従って書き送り、すべて男子たる者はその家の主となるべきこと、また自分の民の言語を用いて語るべきことを諭した。And after these things, when the wrath of the king of Ahasuerus was appeased, he remembered Vashti and what she had done, and what was decreed against her. Then the king's servants that ministered unto him said unto him, Let there be fair young virgins sought for the king. Let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather together all the fair young virgins unto Shushan the place, to the house of the woman, unto the courtesy of Hedge the king's chamberlain, keeper of the women, and let their things for purification be given them. And let the maiden which pleases the king be a queen instead of Vashti. And the thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now in Shushan the place there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, and the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captivity which had been carried away with Jeconiah the king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had carried away. And he brought up Hadash, that is Esther, and his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother, and maid was fair and beautiful, whom Mordecai, when her father and mother were dead, took for his own daughter. So it came to pass, when the king's commandment and his decree was heard, when many maidens were gathered together unto Shushan, the place, to the custody of Haggai, that Esther was brought also into the king's house, the custody of Haggai, the keeper of the woman. And the maiden pleased him, and she obtained kindness from him. He speedily gave her things of purification with things as belonged to her, and 7 maidens, which were meet to be given to her out of the king's house. He preferred her and her maidens unto the best place of the house of the woman. Esther had not showed her people, nor her kindred, for Mordecai had charged her that she should not show it. これらの後、アッシリア王の怒りが遂げ、王はワシテ及び彼女のしたことを、また彼女に対して定めたことを思い起こした。時に王に仕える侍人たちは言った。美しい若い処女たちを王のために尋ね求めましょう。どうぞ王はこの国の各州において役人を選び、美しい若い処女をことごとく首都スサにある婦人の居室に集めさせ、婦人を司る王の侍従、ヘガイの管理のもとにおいて、化粧のために品々彼らに与えください。こうして御意にかなう乙女を取って、ワシテの代わりに王妃としてください。王はこのことを良しとし、そのように行った。さて、首都スサに一人のユダヤ人がいた。名をモルドカイといい、キツの子、シメイの孫、ヤイルの子、ベンヤミン人であった。彼はバビロンの王ネベカネザルが捕らえていったユダの王ニコニアと共に捕らわれていった捕虜の一人で、エルサレムから捕らえを伝えたものである。彼はその叔父の娘ハダセ、すなわちエステルを養い育った。彼女には父も母もなかったからである。この乙女は美しく可愛らしかったが、その父母の死後、モルデカイは彼女に引き取って自分の娘としたのである。王の命令と御事のりが伝えられ、多くの乙女が首都スサに集められて、ハガイの管理のもとに置かれたとき、エステルもまた王宮に携え行かれ、婦人を司るハガイの管理のもとに置かれた。この乙女はハガイの心にかなって、その慈しみを得た。すなわち、ハガイは住処に彼女の化粧の品々および食物の分け前を与え、また、宮中から7人の優れた侍女を選んで彼女に付き添わせ、彼女とその侍女たちを婦人の居室のうち最も良いところに移した。エステルは自分の民のことを、自分の同族のことも人に知らせなかった。モルデカイがこれを知らせようなと彼女に命じたからである。And Mordecai walked every day before the court of the woman's house to know how Esther did and what should become of her. Now, when the king's maid was turned to come to go into the king Ahasuerus, and after she had been 12 months according to the manner of woman, for were the days of their purifications accomplished, to writ 6 months of oil and myrrh, and 6 months with sweet odors, with other things for the purifying of the woman. Then thus every maiden unto the king whatsoever she desired was given to her to go with her out of the house of the woman unto the king's house. In the evening she went, and on the morrow she returned into the second house of the woman to the custody of Shagash, the king's chamberlain, which kept the concubines. She came in unto the king no more, except the king delighted in her, and she was called by name. And when the turn of Esther, the daughter of Abigail, the son of Mordecai, who had taken her daughter, was come to go unto the king, she required nothing but what Haggai, the king's chamberlain, the keeper of women, was appointed. And Esther obtained favor in the sight of all them that looked upon her. So Esther was taken unto King Ahasuerus into his house royal in the 10th month, which is in the month Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther above all the women. She obtained grace and favor in the sight of all his virgins, so that He set his royal crown upon her head, and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast unto all his princes and servants, even Esther's feast, and he made a release into the provinces, and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And when the virgins were gathered together at the second gate, Mordecai sat in the king's gate. Esther had not yet showed kindred nor her people, as Mordecai had charged her. For Esther did the commandment of Mordecai, like as when she was brought up with him. In those days, while Mordecai sat in the king's gate, of the two of the king's chamberlains, Bigdan and Teresh, of those which kept the door, were wroth, and sought to lay hand on King Ahasuerus. And the thing was known to Mordecai, who told it unto Esther the queen, and Esther certified the king thereof in Mordecai's name. And when inquisition was made of the matter, it was found out. Therefore they were both hanged on a tree, and it was written in the book before the chronicles of the king. モルデカイはエステの様子および彼女がどうしているかを知ろうと、毎日婦人の居室の庭の前を歩いていた。乙女たちがおのおの婦人のための規定に従って12ヶ月のを経て後、順番にアシエロス王のところへ行くのであった。これは彼らの化粧の期間として没薬の油を用いることが6ヶ月香料および婦人の化粧に使う品々を用いると6ヶ月が定められていたからである。こうして乙女は王のところに行くことであった。そして乙女が婦人の居室を出て王宮へ行くときにはすべての望むものが与えられた。そして夕方行って歩く朝第二の婦人の居室に帰り、そばめたちを司る王の侍従シャシェガズの管理に伝えた。王がその女を喜び、目指して召すのでなければ、再び王のところへ行くことはなかった。さて、モルデカイの王子、アビハエルの娘、すなわちモルデカイを引き取って自分の娘としたエステルが王のところへ行く順番となった。彼女は婦人を司る王の侍従、ヘガイの巣が進めたもののほか、何をも求めなかった。エステルはすべて彼女を見る者に喜ばれた。エステルがアシエロス王に召されて王宮へ行ったのは、その地帯の第7年の10月、すなわち、テベテの月であった。王はすべての婦人に勝ってエステルを愛したので、彼女はすべての処女に勝って王の前に恵みと慈しみを得た。王はついに王妃の冠を彼女の頭にいただかせ、ワシテに代わって王妃とした。そして王は大いなる主演を催してすべての大臣と侍人をもてなした。エステルの主演がこれである。また、初秋に免税を行い、王の大きな度量に従って贈り物を与えた。二度目少女たちが集まられたとき、モルデカイは王の門に座っていた。エステルはモルデカイが命じたように、また自分の同族のことも、自分の民のことをも人に知らせなかった。エステルはモルデカイの言葉に従うと、彼女に養い育てられた時と少しも変わらなかった。その頃モルデカイが王の門に座っていたとき、王の侍従で王の部屋の戸を守る者のうちと、ビグタンとテレスの二人が怒りのあまりアシレオスを殺そうと狙っていたが、そのことをモルデカイに知らせたので、彼はこれを王妃エステルに告げ、エステルはこれをモルデカイの名をもって王に告げた。そのことは調べられて、それに相違ないことが現れたので、彼ら二人は気にかけられた。このことは王の前で日誌の書に書き記された。